Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be part 2 in this series. We're going quite in depth and looking connections between the Great Pyramid, flood legends, Mecca, Jerusalem, Hermes Trismegistus, Pythaogoras, and the 42 books of Thoth. And so, classic story with the flood, Noah's flood. We see the ark there, but we're also looking at Masonic symbolism. So, the two pillars, which are a common theme, okay, the compass and the square, and this will be linked to the flood. Now we also have, again, notice the two pillars. It might be hard to make out, but we see the zodiac signs, the celestial sphere, and the terrestrial sphere, as well as the 3, 5, and 7 steps, which, amongst other things, represent the 7 steps, the 7 liberal arts, which Enoch, or Metatron, saved from the flood and passed on this. Okay, now also you might notice a Serpentine River, which would connect to the George Washington Masonic Memorial, the Serpentine Wall at Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, Serpentine River there. But also 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps, tools of geometry and masonry. Now also, well, the tetragrammaton, which will be an important theme. Also the dove, Columba, as in the dove from the flood story. It's also in the Ark of Utnapishtim. Very important theme. Now also see two pillars. One with the zodiac symbols on it, and the celestial sphere, and also the terrestrial sphere. So these Masonic symbols. Now again, it's just a standard. So we have the ark, the flood story, and the hermetic wisdom that's been passed on through the ages, through these organizations. Now let's look at the flood story. Genesis 4, it really begins. Genesis 4, 5, 6, you get the story of the flood, Noah's flood. You could direct the Ark of Utnapishtim, Epic of Gilgamesh, tells essentially the same story, except they describe it in a cube. The cube, the Ark of Utnapishtim was described as a cube of 120 by 120 by 120 cubits. Noah's Ark is described differently, but the raven, the dove, and the swallow is in the Epic of Gilgamesh. After the flood, they released a raven, a dove, and a swallow. Noah's flood, they released a raven, or a crow, blackbird, and a swallow. But so what's going on in this story? So just to quickly review, you have Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the mark of Cain because he killed his brother. Another one of their children was Seth, or Seth. Cain, one of his children was Enoch. This is a very important theme, so you can read through the story a little bit, because even the number of years, so eventually God decided that man should not live more than 120 years. The Ark of Utnapishtim, 120 by 120 by 120 cubits. New Jerusalem is 12,000 by 12,000 by 12,000. Again, this reference to, 1 or 12 or 120. So much going on in there, but let's just move quickly. And so Lamech was the son of Enoch, who was, Lamech was the son of Methuselah. I'm not including Methuselah in here, but Methuselah was the grandfather of Noah, but also Tubal-Cain. Tubal-Cain, he was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. She was the inventor of textiles, essentially, and his brother Jubal was the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe. Music, metallurgy, knowledge, textiles, knowledge, which will be a theme. For instance, the making of silk, and Nuwa and Fuzi. We'll get to Nuwa and Fuzi because they too survived the flood and passed on knowledge to the survivors of the cataclysm. And then, of course, we have Noah, who released a dove and a raven. Epic of Gilgamesh, who released a dove, a raven, and a swallow. So that's just the basics of there, but we'll be focusing on Enoch and the book of Enoch. In the last episode, I suggested you should watch Robert Sullivan IV talking about the Royal Arch of Enoch and the Masonic traditions in there and the information in there. Enoch lived for 365 days. Now, Enoch So Enoch knew the flood was coming. He knew that water and fire would destroy the earth. He went into heaven. God was and he was basically, he wanted to argue for the protection of the Nephilim, the watchers, the fallen angels. God didn't allow, was determined to kill them off. However, he was so impressed by Enoch, he turned him into the angel Metatron. And the angel Metatron and Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube, which incorporates some lovely geometry, like pointing to the Platonic solids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the sphere. Now, Metatron's cube you can draw from the seed of life, and I'll link in the video how you can draw it with compass and straight edge and look at the sum of the Platonic solids, 2D and 3-dimensional information. 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. It's an important point to remember that. So Enoch was educated by the Nephilim. He learnt the secrets of science, of knowledge, the Hermetic wisdom, the wisdom of Thoth, for instance, and he knew that the flood was coming. So he knew the earth was going to be destroyed by fire, by water and fire. And to preserve this knowledge, he made 2 pillars to survive the flood. The 2 pillars and the geometry, the astronomy, the 7 liberal arts, so music, geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, rhetoric, grammar, and logic, the basis of science and civilization, because weights and measures are inseparable from these things. Geometry, geometry, earth, measure. Now, Enoch also made an underground chamber with 9 arches, the royal arch of Enoch, and he made a cube, and that cube had a triangle on it, the tetragrammaton, the name of God. And if you knew the name and you spoke it, you would be given wisdom. All the wisdom would become available to you as according to this legend. That's an example of a tetragrammaton. Now, recent series on 33, so 33 and 288, the number connections, the geometric connections from the seed of life. So the tetragrammaton, you can draw that, or the tetractys, the Pythagorean tetractys, also comes from the seed of life. So the knowledge was preserved after the flood via Enoch, who became the angel Metatron. Now, Nuwa and Phuzi, they survived the great flood. They repopulated the earth. They taught skills such as hunting, fishing, raising domesticated animals, writing, marriage contracts, also silk, weaving, and to make fabric, just like Tubal-Cain's sister. And this is China, and also notice the twin snakes, just like the Caduceus. Different depictions of Nuwa and Phuzi. I'll put a link. I did a video on this as well. And the Masonic, because the compass and square of the Masons. Now, what do Nuwa and Phuzi hold? A compass and a square. They also, the tools they made allowed this legendary emperor to measure the universe. Geometry, astronomy, measurement, compass and square, arithmetic, the sciences. Okay, so the knowledge was preserved after the flood. Now, according to the old legends in regards to this, only a few people have found this cube and the knowledge contained therein, that one left by Enoch. Hermes Trismegistus was one of them. Hermes Trismegistus is not Thoth. He come way after, and so he was after Enoch. He was after these connections. Now, in regards to the legends of Solomon's temple, King Hiram or Hiram Abiff, Hermes Trismegistus is not this ancient character. He is a man who came later. A man. Now, Pythagoras, according to legend, was also one to discover Pythagorean theorem, and also the Pythagorean tetractys, which is the tetragrammaton. It's also the triangular numbers and the beautiful math that comes from it. 33, 288, for instance. Of course, the geometry, the music, Pythagorean tuning, same symbols, carries on. Now, Masonic and the connection to stonework, but let's look at the pyramid. So also the cube with the tetragrammaton on it, as in preserving the knowledge, the twin pillars, also the cube. which will link the Kaaba, ancient sites that are still so important to centers of the world, include the Kaaba. Also, the Ben stones, navel stones, the Omphalos. I did a series on that as well. You can link all of this up. Anyway, now the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the site of Solomon's temple was, where, according to legend, this ark, the 9 arches of Solomon, were buried between there. We'll get into that other parts later. Now, the pyramid and the cubes, especially to begin with the Kaaba. Well, Nuwa and Fuzi, Hermes, Seshat, Thoth, who are they? They're all gods of weights and measure. And so let's measure. Begin with the pyramid. I pointed out in an earlier episode, thanks to Sharif for leading me to this. So if you go to the Great Pyramid and you go from corner to corner, so from northwest through to southeast, and I'll get into that later because each corner has a very geometric, astronomical, metrological connection. And you go, well, to the Kaaba, 800 miles would pop you there. It's about 60 feet from the center of the Kaaba. Now that's, it depends on how accurate Google Earth is, but even by any scale to get that level of accuracy, well, that's interesting. We'll come to this. 800 miles ground length. Now, the cube and the Kaaba, we're going for time. Okay, the Great Pyramid is 440 Egyptian royal cubits at the base. Again, I did a series on the cubits. So the average of all 4 sides will give you a cubit of pi over 6 meters. Each side has a slight variation. If you include the variations and you think of it as 3D, you get a, well, symphony of coincidence, of measurable, of the quadrivium. I'll link this in the description. John Neal, along with Robin Heath, John Michel. He's one of these people very studies metrology. Pardon, that's Egyptian, not Egyptane. But so 5 Egyptian royal cubits equals 6 Jewish cubits. Therefore, 440 Egyptian royal cubits, 5 over 6 is 528 sacred Jewish. I was going to call it Jewish cubits for now, because this is a very complex issue. What cubit are you talking about in regards to this? Now we need to skip forward to 1593, Queen Elizabeth I, who John Dee, Gunther, Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, just so much going on around that time. Very, very hermetic. Now, Edmund Gunther, astronomer, mathematician, geometer, and clergyman, was the guy who was behind this redescription of this, how we get the mile as it is described now. He also brought up the Gunther's chain. Recent episodes in regards to this went into that a lot. But 1 furlong is 10 Gunther's chain, or 660 feet. 1 Gunther's or surveyor's chain is 66 feet. That's relevant because, well, 1 mile, 528 feet, 5,280, 528 Jewish cubits, which is equal to 1,760 yards. The perimeter of a Great Pyramid, 440 Egyptian royal cubits times 4 is 1,760 Egyptian royal cubits, the perimeter of the Great Pyramid. Now, we're not even scratching the surface yet. Now, just after Queen Elizabeth, then we had the King James Bible, which changed the description of New Jerusalem, which is a cube. The city, the length is as large as the breadth, and the height, describing a cube, 12,000 furlongs, the length and the breadth and the height are equal. So the length, the breadth, and the height are equal, 12,000 furlongs. And instead of the older Bibles, which will say stadia, now we know exactly what a furlong is. A furlong is 660 feet. And so, therefore, 12,000 furlongs is 528,000,000 English cubits. 1 cubit is 1.5 feet is a cubit. 528, 1,760. Okay, now it just so happens that the modern meter, the meter we use now, that 12,000 furlongs is 24140,160 meters to the exactly. Next episode coming up. Have a good one.